First contact shock. Ambassador Tilara of the Galactic Confederation had seen countless technological demonstrations during her 3 centuries of diplomatic service. She had witnessed the unveiling of quantum phase drives, matter replication systems, and even experimental time dilation devices. But nothing in her extensive career had prepared her for this moment. "You accelerate physical projectiles?" she asked, her crystalline form shifting through shades of puzzled azure. "Without teleportation matrices." Lieutenant Commander James Rodriguez of the Earth Defense Force stood beside the massive weapon, his casual posture a stark contrast to the alien delegation's rigid attention. "Yes, ma'am. The Mark IV Helios rail platform uses electromagnetic acceleration to launch kinetic penetrators at approximately 15% light speed. Simple, reliable, and effective." The assembled alien diplomats exchanged worried glances. Admiral Zixtal, the Confederation's leading military expert, stepped forward. His massive arthropod form towered over the human officer. "But surely your species developed matter transmission weapons first. It's the natural progression. Particle physics leads to teleportation. Teleportation leads to weapon systems." Rodriguez shook his head, running a hand along the railgun's polished barrel. "We looked into teleportation early on, but the power requirements were astronomical. Why spend the energy taking something apart and putting it back together when you can just push it really fast?" Thalara's translation matrix struggled to process the concept. Her species had mastered teleportation before developing powered flight. The idea of focusing centuries of research into purely kinetic weapons seemed almost primitive. Yet the test data displayed on the floating holoscreens told a different story. "These penetration figures," Admiral Zixtal chittered nervously. "They can't be correct. Our finest phase shields." "Would like try a demonstration?" Rodriguez offered, already inputting commands into the control console. "We've got a decommissioned destroyer parked about 300,000 kilometers out. Standard test range setup." Before Tilara could object, the rail platform hummed to life. There was no dramatic light show, no reality-bending special effects like teleporter weapons produced, just a brief flash and a subtle vibration through the station's deck plates. On the main display, the target ship developed a neat hole through its center, internal atmosphere, creating a beautiful but terrifying spiral of frozen gases. "Clean penetration," Rodriguez noted, checking the readings. "Looks like your phase shields actually helped. They smoothed out the projectile's surface as it passed through. Interesting effect." Admiral Zixtal's translator produced several seconds of incomprehensible static before managing. But the targeting calculations at those velocities, the computational requirements alone would. "Oh, that." Rodriguez waved dismissively. "Yeah, doing the math by hand would be crazy. That's why we developed combat AI first. Had to solve the targeting problem before we could solve the shooting problem." Tilara felt her crystalline structure resonate with sudden understanding. Humanity hadn't failed to develop proper weapons technology. They'd simply found a different path. While other species sought ever more exotic solutions, humans had taken basic principles and refined them to devastating effectiveness. "Lieutenant Commander," she said carefully, "would your government be open to a technological exchange program? I believe both our peoples could learn much from each other's approaches." Rodriguez grinned. "Funny you should ask. Our engineers have been dying to see how your teleportation tech works. Not to copy it. They just want to figure out if we can shoot things even faster by combining the principles." As Tilara composed her preliminary report to the Confederation Council, she found herself struggling to capture the essence of human engineering philosophy. How does one explain a species that developed artificial intelligence not to unlock the secrets of the universe, but to help them throw rocks really, really well? In the end, she settled for a simple observation. Humanity does not reject advanced technology. They simply refuse to accept that complex solutions are inherently better than simple ones. This makes them either the most primitive advanced species we have encountered, or possibly the most advanced primitive ones. Further study is urgently recommended. The report would eventually become required reading at the Confederation's Diplomatic Academy under the section titled, "Why Assumptions About Technological Progress Can Be Dangerous." The human example. The engineering choice. Dr. Maya Patel stood before the assembled alien scientists in MIT's Advanced Weapons Research Center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the evolution of human weapons technology. Her audience, comprising some of the galaxy's finest minds, watched with a mixture of fascination and disbelief. "You see," she gestured to a timeline floating beside her. "In 2157, we actually had a working teleportation prototype. The math was solid, the quantum entanglement was stable, and we were maybe 3 years away from practical implementation." A Thylaxian researcher, their bioluminescent tendrils pulsing with confusion, raised an appendage. "But according to your records, that's when you abandoned the project entirely." "Why?" Maya smiled, bringing up another display showing energy consumption graphs. Cost-benefit analysis. Our early railgun prototypes could achieve similar military objectives, using less than 0.1% of the power required for teleportation. When the numbers came in, the choice was obvious. Obvious. The word echoed from multiple universal translators as dozens of alien scientists spoke at once. A meridian physicist, their crystalline form shimmering with agitation, floated forward. "You had mastered quantum entanglement. The applications went far beyond weapons technology." "Oh, we still use quantum mechanics," Maya clarified, pulling up schematics for the latest Mark V targeting system. "We just apply it differently. Instead of using it to transmit matter, we use it to calculate trajectories more efficiently." The room erupted in a cacophony of translated protests and questions. Maya waited patiently, sipping her coffee, a habit many alien researchers had begun to adopt during their time studying human engineering practices. "Dr. Patel," a voice cut through the chaos. It belonged to senior researcher Zex Till, whose species had achieved faster-than-light travel before developing the wheel. "Are you saying humans developed quantum computing solely to improve the accuracy of projectile weapons?" "Well, not solely," Maya replied, "but it was a major motivator. When you're throwing things at appreciable percentages of light speed, standard computing just doesn't cut it." She brought up footage from an early test firing. The assembled scientists watched in silence as a simple tungsten rod, accelerated to 20% light speed, pierced through 7 layers of the most advanced alien shielding technology like they weren't there. "The interesting part," Maya continued, "wasn't just hitting the target. It was figuring out what happened along the way. Those impacts taught us more about relativistic physics than a century of particle accelerator experiments." A Centaurian researcher, their multiple eyes blinking in sequence, raised a tentacle. "But surely you encountered problems with atmospheric interference, heat dissipation, barrel degradation." "Oh, constantly," Maya grinned. "That's why we developed metamaterials that can withstand temperatures hotter than some stars." Seemed easier than trying to teleport things through space-time. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't failed to develop advanced technology. They had simply chosen to perfect what others considered primitive solutions. "Look," Maya said, setting down her coffee cup, "I know our approach seems strange to you. But consider this. Every species in this room developed teleportation because they assumed it was the next logical step. We developed railguns because we asked if there might be a simpler way." She pulled up one final display, showing the cost and power requirements for various weapon systems. "Teleportation is elegant, sure, but sometimes you don't need elegant. Sometimes you just need to make something go really, really fast." As the presentation concluded, Maya noticed several alien scientists huddled around a data terminal, running calculations. She caught fragments of translated conversation. "If we applied their metamaterials to our phase cannons, what if we combined quantum targeting with matter stream projection?" She smiled, remembering something her old professor used to say. "The greatest breakthrough often isn't finding a new solution, but questioning why we thought we needed a complicated one in the first place. Later that evening, Maya updated her report to the Joint Species Technology Exchange Program. Under Cultural Observations, she wrote, "Our alien colleagues are beginning to understand that human engineering isn't about choosing the simple over the advanced. It's about questioning why we assume advanced must mean complicated." The next day, 3 different alien research teams requested access to Earth's railgun testing facilities. They didn't want to study the technology itself, but rather the human approach to problem solving. As one Xylaxian researcher put it, "Perhaps we have been so focused on bending the universe to our will, we forgot that sometimes it's enough to just throw something very hard." Testing day. Captain Sarah Way of the Earth Defense Force stood at the observation deck of Testing Station Alpha, watching alien ships arrive for the first Joint Species Weapons Exhibition. The massive facility, orbiting just beyond Mars' orbit, had been specifically designed to showcase humanity's primitive technology to their new galactic neighbors. "They still don't believe the numbers," her AI assistant, Araya, commented through her neural link. 17 different species have submitted formal requests to verify our test data. Sarah smiled, watching the Hegemony battlecruiser materialize from quantum space. Its hull bristled with what their database identified as advanced matter stream projectors and phase cannons. Can't blame them. We did just append about 8,000 years of weapons development theory. The exhibition hall below was filling with representatives from across the galaxy. Some floated, others crawled or slithered, and a few existed partially in other dimensions. All had come to witness what they still considered impossible. "First demonstration in 5 minutes," Captain Araya reminded her. The Arcturus Confederation insisted on using their latest defensive technology. Sarah nodded, making her way to the control center. The demonstration target, an obsolete Earth destroyer, hung in space 500,000 kilometers away. Around it, Arcturus engineers had erected their most advanced defensive grid, a combination of quantum phase barriers, temporal distortion fields, and something their technical documents described as probability manipulation matrices. "Quite the setup," commented Chief Engineer Riza Patel, not related to Dr. Maya from the MIT research team. He was reviewing the alien defensive specifications with obvious interest. "They've got enough energy wrapped around that target to power Earth for a year." Sarah took her position at the main control station, everyone ready for some physics. The alien observers tensed, some literally crystallizing with anticipation. Their defensive systems were considered impenetrable, capable of stopping anything by either redirecting it through space-time or shifting it into alternate probability states. "Standard demonstration package," Sarah announced. 1 kilogram tungsten penetrator, acceleration to 25% light speed. Araya, please begin targeting calculations. Target locked. Araya responded instantly, adjusting for gravitational lensing, solar wind variations, and quantum field interference. Solution plotted. Sarah noticed several alien scientists frantically checking their instruments. The casual way humans integrated AI into their simple weapons apparently unsettled them as much as the weapons themselves. Firing in 3, 2, 1. There was no dramatic buildup, no reality warping special effects. Just a brief flash from the railgun barrel, a slight vibration through the station's structure. And then, the target ship developed a perfectly circular hole through its center. The surrounding defensive grid, representing the pinnacle of galactic military technology, hadn't even slowed the projectile down. "Impact confirmed," Araya reported cheerfully. "Penetration exactly as calculated." Interesting note, their probability manipulation field actually helped stabilize the projectile's trajectory. The observation deck erupted in a chaos of translated exclamations and questions. A hegemony weapons designer, their cybernetic implants blinking rapidly, pushed forward. But the temporal field should have shifted the projectile 5 microseconds into the past. It did, Sarah confirmed, checking the data. But our targeting solution accounted for that. When you're dealing with relativistic velocities, Time displacement just means adjusting the aim point slightly. U, calculated for temporal shift. The alien's universal translator seemed to struggle with the concept. Well, yeah, Sarah shrugged. Once AI figured out the math, it was just another variable to consider. Kind of like wind resistance, but with more dimensional physics involved. A meridian scientist, their crystalline form vibrating with excitement, floated closer to the displays. Your artificial intelligence can process temporal mathematics in real time. Had to. Reza interjected. Can't hit things moving at relativistic speeds unless you can calculate where they were, are, and might be simultaneously. The targeting math got pretty intense, so we built better computers. Sarah watched understanding dawn across various alien features. Humanity hadn't just created a powerful weapon. They casually developed revolutionary artificial intelligence, materials science, and computational systems, all in service of simply throwing things very fast. Captain, Araya's voice held a note of amusement. The Arcturus delegation is requesting permission to inspect our targeting computers. They seem to have trouble believing we developed temporal mathematics processing just to improve weapon accuracy. Granted, Sarah replied, then added to the assembled aliens. Though I should warn you, our targeting systems are intentionally simple. We found that overcomplicating things tends to get in the way of hitting what you're aiming at. As she watched the alien scientists pore over the simple technology that had rendered their most advanced defenses obsolete, Sarah was reminded of her Academy physics professor's favorite saying, "The universe doesn't care how elegant your solution is. It only cares if it works." The theory of simple. The Galactic Research Institute's main conference hall was packed beyond capacity. Dr. Xinthar, lead theorist of the Advanced Technologies Division, faced an audience representing over 300 species. His presentation, titled Understanding Human Engineering Philosophy, the pursuit of elegant simplicity, had drawn unprecedented attention. Consider, he began, his holographic displays showing the development timeline of human weapons technology, that when humanity encountered a physics problem, their solution was not to bend physics to their will, but to work within its rules more efficiently. The displays shifted to show comparative analysis between teleportation weapons and human railguns. A teleportation weapon requires us to temporarily violate conservation of matter and energy. A human railgun simply requires that we push something very hard. Scattered laughter rippled through the audience, their universal translators struggling to convey the intended humor. But here is where it becomes fascinating, Xinthar continued, bringing up new data. When faced with the computational challenges of relativistic trajectories, humans didn't attempt to simplify the physics. Instead, they created artificial intelligence sophisticated enough to handle the complex mathematics in real time. A quantum collective representative raised their probability field. Are you suggesting that human artificial intelligence development was driven by weapons targeting requirements? Partially, Xinthar confirmed. According to their records, the first true combat AI was developed by Dr. Elena Martins during what they called a weekend coding binge. Her noted reason was, and I quote, "These calculations are boring, and I have better things to do." The hall erupted in chittering and crystalline resonances as the implications sank in. Humanity had achieved one of the galaxy's greatest technological breakthroughs, largely because a scientist wanted to automate her math homework. But surely, a hegemony researcher interjected, their cybernetic implants pulsing with confusion, they realized the broader implications of their AI development. Oh, they did. Xinthar brought up another display. They immediately used it to make their railguns even more accurate. The AI development team's primary goal wasn't to create artificial consciousness. It was to hit things more precisely, at a significant fraction of light speed. He paused, letting that sink in. This brings us to what I call the human paradox. When faced with a complex problem, humans will often develop revolutionary technology, not to solve the complex problem, but to make a simple solution more effective. The displays shifted to show the material composition of human railgun barrels. When faced with barrel degradation at relativistic velocities, they didn't try to phase shift the projectile or create quantum tunneling effects. Instead, they developed metamaterials that could withstand temperatures hotter than some stars. A Meridian physicist's crystalline form flickered with realization. They advanced materials science by centuries, just to make their tubes stronger. Precisely, Synthar confirmed. And when these metamaterials proved useful for other applications, their response was essentially, "Oh, that's neat." Their focus remained on the original goal, throwing things very fast, very accurately. He brought up his final display, showing the energy efficiency comparisons between various weapon systems. A teleportation weapon requires enough power to temporarily violate the laws of physics. A human railgun requires enough power to overcome inertia. They chose the simpler approach, then spent centuries perfecting it. The presentation concluded with a quote from a human engineer that had become famous in scientific circles. "Why walk around the mountain when you can shoot straight through it?" Later, during the question session, a young Arcturian researcher asked what many were thinking. But doesn't this make humans technologically inferior? Synthar's response would be quoted in scientific journals for decades. They developed artificial intelligence to improve weapon accuracy, created metamaterials that revolutionized our understanding of matter, and achieved practical quantum computing to calculate trajectories. All because they wanted to throw rocks really well. Does that sound inferior to you? As the conference concluded, research teams across the galaxy began re-examining their own technologies. Many found themselves asking a new question: is there a simpler way? The Galactic Research Institute established a new department dedicated to what they called human reverse engineering, not to study human technology, but to understand how humans approached problems. Their first challenge: explaining why a species that could create artificial intelligence and metamaterials still considered a really fast rock to be one of their most effective weapons. Integration. The Unified Species Technology Summit on Mars represented something unprecedented in galactic history. In the vast dome of the New Armstrong Research Center, human and alien engineers worked side by side, combining technologies that conventional wisdom had long considered incompatible. Dr. Samira Khan watched from her observation platform as a team of hegemony scientists interfaced their quantum phase technology with a modified human railgun. Their initial skepticism had given way to enthusiasm when they realized they weren't trying to replace human technology. They were enhancing it. Phase field synchronization complete, announced Araya, the AI that had become something of a celebrity among alien researchers. Projectile quantum state stabilized. Ready for test firing. The target range extended into Mars orbit, where automated drones placed targets at varying distances. This particular test would demonstrate the first successful merger of human kinetic weapons and alien phase technology. "Remember when they thought we were primitive?" Lieutenant Carlos Rodriguez asked, inputting final coordinates. "Now they're practically fighting over who gets to modify our simple weapons first." Samira smiled, remembering the initial diplomatic tensions. Turns out primitive is relative. They developed teleportation to avoid dealing with physical limitations. We developed metamaterials to work within them. The test firing demonstrated why the combined approach was revolutionary. The railgun launched its projectile at 30% light speed, but the phase technology allowed it to partially exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. The result was a weapon that didn't need to penetrate defensive shields. It simply existed on both sides of them at once. "Fascinating," commented High Researcher Zixpack, their crystalline form shimmering with excitement. "We spent millennia trying to bypass the laws of physics, while humans spent that time learning to use those laws more effectively. The combination is elegant." That word, elegant, had begun appearing more frequently in scientific discussions. The galactic community was learning that elegance didn't always mean complexity. In another section of the facility, Human AI researchers worked with Meridian quantum specialists to develop what they called intuitive targeting. The aim was to combine human artificial intelligence's raw computational power with the Meridian's natural ability to perceive quantum states. The real breakthrough, Samira explained to a group of visiting dignitaries, wasn't in the technology itself. It was in learning to see different approaches as complementary rather than competitive. She gestured to a holographic display showing the various joint projects underway. Humans perfected the art of throwing rocks really fast. The galactic community perfected the art of manipulating spacetime. Separately, each approach had limitations. Together, the implications were staggering. Human railguns combined with alien phase technology, teleportation systems enhanced by human AI and metamaterials. Each species' simple solutions making the other's advanced technology more effective. "We've entered a new era of weapons development," Admiral Chen announced at the summit's closing ceremony. "But more importantly, we've entered a new era of understanding. The question is no longer whether a solution is primitive or advanced, it's whether it works." The summit's final report included a section that would become famous throughout the galaxy. The human approach to technology teaches us that innovation isn't always about finding new ways to break the rules. Sometimes it's about finding better ways to play within them. As the summit concluded, Samira found herself in the facility's observation dome, watching the Martian sunset with a diverse group of researchers. A hegemony scientist was explaining their latest theory about combining quantum tunneling with kinetic impacts. A human engineer was suggesting ways to make it more energy efficient. "You know what's really interesting?" Araya's voice came through their shared neural link. "When you analyze the pattern, every species developed the technologies they needed to solve the problems they thought were important. Humans wanted to hit things accurately at long distances. Others wanted to bypass space-time limitations. Nobody was wrong. They were just asking different questions." Samira watched as another joint test firing lit up the Martian sky. The projectile, existing in multiple quantum states and accelerated to relativistic velocities, represented the perfect fusion of human and alien approaches. "Maybe that's the real lesson," she mused. "The universe doesn't care how you solve a problem, as long as you solve it. We just had to learn that different paths to the same destination aren't mutually exclusive." The future of galactic technology would be shaped by this understanding. Humanity's primitive solutions and the galaxy's advanced technology wouldn't compete. They would complement, creating possibilities that neither approach could achieve alone. After all, as one human engineer put it, sometimes the best way to solve a complex problem is to combine simple solutions in complex ways.